This week, the popular Nordic charging maker, Kempower, announced they can now support 12 stalls from a single 600 kilowatt power unit, up from the previous 8. CPO Ready continues to open an impressive amount of stations, and Revel was spotted starting their San Francisco expansion. Let's get into it. I'm here at the Kempower offices that support North America. They're based in Finland, and this office opened in order to fulfill Build America, Buy America requirements underneath the Biden administration, which I believe are still in effect underneath the Trump administration. And so units that are deployed throughout North America are assembled here at this facility. They had a press release, which I will get to in a second. I'm not sure if I mentioned, I'm in Durham, North Carolina. I was headed back home from Wilmington, North Carolina. My son goes to school there, and I decided this would be an appropriate place in order to shoot the video. Last week, I mentioned about how the Pennsylvania Turnpike Travel Plaza was getting an Alpitronic hypercharger, courtesy of Applegreen. And this week, another was spotted, except this one in New York off Scottsville on Interstate 90. And actually, not this past week. They've actually been in PlugShare for a while. It's just actually, I noticed them this past week. So it looks like Applegreen is in full swing to convert the travel plazas they run in order to have Alpitronic stations. This one is just south of Rochester. There's another one near Albany at what is known as the Gilderland Service Plaza, I believe is how it's pronounced, that just popped into PlugShare, also run by Applegreen and also with Alpitronic hyperchargers. As I mentioned at the start, Kempower announced the more plugs portion of a trifold product update that they were getting ready to do. And the trifold, let me just go over that really quick. It's more power, more plugs, more data. And these are enhancements to the products that they offer. They already were talking about more power, which the 600 kilowatt units that support these pedestals, these are known as satellite charging dispensers, could be combined to offer the first ever 1.2 megawatt of distribution to charging stations. That was earlier this year, they made that announcement. That was the more power portion of the trifold product update. Now they just announced the more plugs portion of the update. And let me just go over some of the details in the press release. It's kind of interesting. Kempower introduced the game-changing more power, more plugs, more data concept in April 2025, presenting updates to this classic dynamic charging station and taking power to megawatt range. For the first phase, deliveries of the new configuration for more power charging solutions with two 600 kilowatt Kempower power units started in June, making Kempower the first EV charging manufacturer ready to ship 1.2 megawatts of dynamically distributed charging power. More plugs being the second phase of the rollout. More phase will follow in 2026. More data will follow in 2026. So the more plugs consists of a single 600 kilowatt Kempower power unit connecting up to 12 stations. Previously, it was limited to 8, and these are again the satellite charging dispensers. The more plugs portion is saying that the 600 kilowatt unit can now be linked to 12 stations. Now the advantage there is, I guess you could argue good and bad, because if you link 12 of these to 600 and you do the math and all of them are full, they're only able to dispense 50 kilowatts because, 600 and you got 12, you do the math on that, and it's 50 kilowatts per stall. And so you could kind of argue that it's better to have fewer, but what this allows is more flexibility. And you have to remember that Kempower's home base is in the Nordic countries where EV adoption is much further along. And what they see with the products that they offer matches what happens after the adoption rate is further along in the curve. And so really what you want to have is as many stalls as you could possibly accommodate for the massive amount of electric vehicles that will be in any given community. So just think about it. If you have 2 power units linked together at 1.2 megawatts, you're now able to dispense to 24 stalls. That's pretty economical for you as a operator, charge point operator, or a site host. You've got 24 stalls that you're able to dispense to. Most of the time, those are not going to be all full. And if for some reason all 24 are full, then each stall could only have 50 kilowatts. But in the event that one is off, you get more power distributed to the other stalls. And they have a lot of granularity in their dynamic allocation of power. I forgot what it is. I think it might be 25 kilowatt increments, or it might be 50 kilowatt increments. I can't remember. But there is a lot of dynamicity in that. There's also, last year, announced silicon carbide units that go into the power, what do they call them? Power units. So each one of those power units have multiple shelves that go in them. And you can combine silicon carbide rectifiers with ones that are not silicon carbide and just grow and organically upgrade to silicon carbide throughout your environment. Is a very flexible and reliable method of providing EV charging stations. And this is just an enhancement to that. So now you have even more flexibility with the ability to go up to 12 satellite dispensers off a single 600 kilowatt unit. And if you link it to 2, you're able to go all the way up to 24. So I don't know, that sounds pretty darn good to me. I think Kempower is going to be successful. They're definitely going to catch some eyes with that. And speaking of Kempower, one of their largest customers, Revel, has listed 5 new stations on their website coming to the San Francisco Bay Area. And this week, 2 of them were spotted under construction in PlugShare. The first is in the town of Glenview, east of Oakland, and it is seen to have 22 stalls stationed, according to reports. So that would be basically 2 power bricks, assuming that they are going with the 12 configuration. If they're going with the 8, then it would be 3. And the second is in the financial district of San Francisco, and only 6 stalls, so that one is smaller. Both are using Kempower hardware, according to reports. In Alberta and British Columbia, CPO Shore Power announced an expansion of 96 stalls spread among 2 Canadian provinces at about 24 locations. So that's between 4 and 8 stalls per station. The report came to me from Clean Technica's Jake Richardson's article, where it appears he was able to speak to representatives of SureCharge to confirm the information. Here's some of the information from Jake's article. The first 4 sites, Red Deer, Alberta Sports Hall of Fame, Lacombe at Midway Esso, Enoch Nation at the River Creek Resort, and Rocky Mountain House are targeted to be operational by December 2025. The full Phase 1 network will be open to the public by December 2026. So the first collection of these are going to be open by Christmas this year, and all the rest, with the 96 stalls in completion, will be open to the public by Christmas 2026. So good news for Western Canada provinces. Ready continues momentum with new stations opening, with 7 in as many days, which is really impressive, including 2 in Massachusetts and 4 in their home state of Michigan. Last week I mentioned a new Red E station going into Carrollton, Texas, using a new hardware vendor called Vive EV. This week, Vive EV posted into social media about the station opening and are calling it their flagship station. Their U.S. offices are in the town of South Lake, Texas, which is only a few miles from the Carrollton station. It remains to be seen where their partnership with Ready will go, but for sure a vendor to keep an eye on. And actually, I've been in contact with one of their PR specialists, and I believe when I air next week's episode, we'll have an interview with them in order to discuss their products and potential upcoming expansion into North America. Definitely something to keep an eye on. Pilot Flying J opened 2, including a canopy in Tuskegee, Alabama on Interstate 20 between Montgomery and Atlanta, In the city of Casper, Wyoming, on Interstate 25 in the middle of the state, further filling in the upper Great Plains. Really good to see the noble effort by Pilot Flying J continuing throughout the United States and filling in a lot of the charging deserts with those really nice stations that they're doing. Tesla opened 10 stations, including a 24 stall at a strip mall outside of Toronto. Very nice looking station with V4 dispensers. Viewers additionally chimed in about the importance of a few others. Let me just go over those. Ben's Eco Adventure called out the 12-stall station in Kane, Pennsylvania, saying it's underserved and sees a lot of tourists. John Baker Charge mentions the new stations in Pennsylvania pushed the Tesla Supercharger stall count past 1,000 for the state of Pennsylvania now. Don 5188 says the 16-stall station in Wickenburg, Arizona augments an older V2 that was commonly crowded on weekends, so alleviating some of the congestion there. And Big Dave Dahl said the Sterling, Colorado, put in 2 weeks ago with 8 stalls is a game changer for eastern Colorado, western Nebraska, and says I-80 will be an easier trip as a result. Much thanks to the noble people at the Tesla Supercharger team for all they do for the EV community. EVgo opened 4 new stations, including a larger form factor in the town of Citrus Heights, California, with 12 stalls. That makes 2 weeks in a row that EVgo has opened larger form factor stations. Hasn't gone unnoticed by me. Those take a lot of time and effort for EVgo to commission, so seeing 2 in as many weeks is pretty uncommon. They also opened 3 of their more typical 4-stall stations in Oceanside, California, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Kansas City, Kansas. Next, Electrify America opened 2 new stations. In Edison, my notes say New York, but I think it's Edison, New Jersey, at a local mall, a 10-stall station opened. And in Charlotte Hall, Maryland, at a Royal Farms 8-stall station. As you may recall, from a few weeks ago, Royal Farms issued a press release saying they were going to be working with Electrify America to install EV chargers at select locations on their properties in Maryland. And let me just go over some of these bullet points from the press release from Royal Farms. They're going to be doing the Electrify America 350 kilowatt hyperfast chargers at locations beginning with 8 Royal Farm locations in Maryland, including Annapolis, Cantonville, Charlotte Hall, Columbia, Hallanthrope, and Ox Hill, Pikesville, and Townsend. The Oxon Hill and the Charlotte Hall are now open. And the chargers are integrated into Royal Farm stores, allowing drivers to charge their vehicles while grabbing some food, coffee, and other items. The network expansion bullet point says, this project expands both Electrify America's network and Royal Farm's existing EV infrastructure, but it doesn't really say where they're going to go after Maryland. But assumedly, if they see the right numbers on their accounting spreadsheets concerning convenience store sales numbers at these locations, they'll very likely expand. And that seems to be what I'm seeing other C-store operators seeing, because every time a C-store operator starts to put in electric vehicle charging, they seem to rinse and repeat and get religion real quick and start putting them in additional places. So I could only assume there's a lot of black ink associated with this. Shell Recharge staff member Steve NG, and I don't know how to pronounce that, the National Program Director for E-Mobility and EV Infrastructure, announced 8 new charging stations going into British Columbia and Ontario that are also coming with NACS and native CCS stalls. These locations are in Ontario, Markham, Scarborough, East Toronto, Mississauga, and Mississauga at the airport. In BC, they have 2 in Vancouver and 1 in, I'm going to have a hard time pronouncing this, it looks like a First Nation word, Coquitlam, Colloquium, I believe it's how it's pronounced, I'm not sure. With more locations coming soon, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. So good to see that Shell Recharge is not only expanding in the United States, but also in Canada. Lastly, a few viewers submitted Ionna station spotting photos. First, Scott Owens, who's been on this channel before concerning his visit to an Ionna station, is keeping eyes on the very interesting Ionna build near the Atlanta airport. It's in the town of Forest Park and is on the property of a former Waffle House that's being converted into a full rechargery. Let's take a look at those photos now. Scott also sent me these photos of the Ionna rechargery further down Interstate 75 from Atlanta in Cordele, Georgia. Let's take a look at these. Next, Matt from the Ocean Views YouTube channel sent me these photos of the new, soon-to-open Raleigh, North Carolina rechargery, which is actually not too far from here. I actually drove by where it is getting put in off Interstate 40. Actually, it's not off Interstate 40, but it's in Raleigh, which is off Interstate 40. Let's take a look at those photos. Thank you very much for watching.